Okay. Hello. This is the podcast for Steamy gamers. I am here. I'm Chris with Patrick and Chris.
Yeah.
Another one. We'll be talking about Steam and games on Steam. I think of you two as very into the video game scene of things, so I'm curious, what do you think of when you think of Steam? What sets Steam apart from other places?
Well, as a connoisseur, I would say, of video games, my Steam tag, by the way, is Nihilist Nipples. You should totally look me up. There's a picture of nipples there.
Very appropriate.
I think that Steam is about community. And when you think community, you usually think, playful, fun. But the cool thing about Steam is it's not that. It's a lot of people competing with each other. Have you played Dota? Dota's pretty much that. It's a good example.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris on that. Also, my Steam username is Puncakes. You can look me up. It's the picture of Patrick Star as a Starmie if you want to add me. And I would agree that, Steam is definitely community-oriented, and it's got a lot of potential for players who don't have a lot of money. It's not just a place to buy games. Like Dota 2, like Chris said, is a free-to-play game. I think it's the most played game on Steam. It's got, over 500,000 people on it every day, which is pretty impressive. Yeah. It's just a really good place for people to come together and just play the stuff they like.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting point you make about community. Maybe because I don't play a lot of online games, but where does the community part really come in? I usually experience Steam as just a place to buy games.
Oh, it's much more than that. I have a lot to say. Just think about that. Basically, when I play games online, especially stuff like Overwatch or League of Legends or anything online in general, not just Steam games, I go into a game and I immediately click, "Hi, how's it going?" to people. I don't even know these people. There's random people I met online. And either you'll get positive responses or no response, or negative responses, but usually the first, it's "Hey, how's it going?" And I remember once we all just kind of gathered and didn't even play that game. We just kind of hung out. And it's a very community-friendly place to be. It's usually when it's not an actual game. It's you're waiting for a game to start or something. That is usually when the magic happens. But overall, yeah, I'd say I have over at least 40 friends on Steam just from people I randomly met.
Wow.
And not just with multiplayer games too, but the Steam community is also a collaborative effort. For instance, when you think of games like Torchlight or Skyrim or any Bethesda game, really, there's this group of people in this community that are generating mods. And sure, it's not just on Steam. There's Nexus mods, etc. But the cool thing about Steam recently is that they're developing the workshop where people can collaborate, and developers are even releasing programs that help, which then makes the developers part of the community as well.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You can have people create all this different content for a game when it was originally in the game. Like in Skyrim, I have a Thomas the Tank Engine mod, which is pretty great. It replaces all the dragons with Thomas the Tank Engine.
I believe on Nexus mods, Skyrim has the largest number of available mods.
Yep. Yeah.
It's several thousand. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and the community always develops more, whether or not it's a joke, having Thomas the Tank Engine come down and try to kill you.
Yep.
But also, you could just beat the game as a dog, which is really great. Yeah. Or cheese wheel, whatever.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That's good stuff.
I want to move now into some of the games that I'm pretty sure we've all played on Steam. I want to talk about Fallout in particular. I'm pretty sure every Fallout game is on Steam. Have you guys played all the Fallout games?
I played all but 4, and I've seen people play 4 so much that I basically know what it is at this point. Yeah.
I've played every single one of them outside of Brotherhood of Steel, because that is just an awful game. And I know better.
Have you played the classic Fallouts, Patrick?
Oh, the old school Fallout? No, I've just played New Vegas, 3, and a little bit of 4.
I see.
So it's all new stuff. Yeah. I want to play the older ones, though.
Oh, it's worth it, I think. I have Fallout 1 and 2 first, and honestly, I haven't taken the time to sit down and play it for a long time, but I've really just gotten to know the gameplay mechanics of it. But it seems like the game that would be worth playing. Unfortunately, I'm just kind of in the mindset of I've played Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4. and I'm just expecting this first-person shooter, and I want this action that I'm not really getting from the original Fallout games. You have to try to separate yourself from that, because they are different games, even though they are set in the same universe, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because Fallout 1, 2, Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout Tactics, this group of games, they existed before Bethesda owned them.
Really?
Yeah, Bethesda's first Fallout game was Fallout 3. And so the groundwork of the Fallout universe was made by someone separate. I'm forgetting the name of the developer right now, sadly. But essentially, without them and these games, you wouldn't really have anything from Fallout 3 or 4, because so much of those worlds are straight up taken from the previous games, like the Gek and how the super mutants are, the FEV virus, all of that, the Enclave, all that was started with Fallout 1, 2.
Speaking of where the Fallout games come from, have either of you played Wasteland?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what
Learning more
Wasteland
about
is?
I've heard the name. Give me a little...
Okay, Chris, you seem more familiar with Wasteland. Do you want to explain it?
Okay, so Wasteland is a pretty new game right now. And if you want to kind of experience Fallout 1 and 2, but you're spoiled and you want to understand AAA gaming now,
Yes.
it has the availability of AAA kind of ease of use while still having that Fallout 1, 2 vibe, top-down shooter survival game. It's really, really good. It's multiplayer.
It's on Steam?
Yeah, it's on Steam.
Is it free or you have to pay for it?
I think it's like $20.
Oh, okay.
Really?
It was
wow.
cheap. Maybe it was on sale.
It went down in price then.
Maybe I got it on a sale.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Wasteland 2.
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, right.
Wasteland, the new
You're
one.
probably talking about Wasteland. They did a remake. The classic Wasteland looks like a freaking NES game.
That's good.
It's really old school. I have it actually. I got it for like $1, I think. I'm sure it's a great game, but I don't know if it didn't age well or if I just didn't have the patience to play it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those games where you have to have the hard copy of the manual to play it. I mean, at the time, I just was not in the mood for that level of commitment.
Back in my day, we had to read a book before we could play video games.
Yeah. So, a bit about Fallout. For those maybe listening who don't know what Fallout is, we want to give like a description of what Fallout, like the game is itself. Because I know there's this whole history with like the Cold War, and like the Cold War happened, and then it didn't happen, and like it's in this post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, a little bit of history about the Fallout universe itself.
Yeah.
Go on.
In a world where we bomb Japan and then think, why not continue? We develop these nuclear batteries and make robot butlers and then nuke each other over oil. And it sounds a lot like modern day with Trump, but it's not. You see, this is when we decided that we hate China, we hate Russia, and we really like Coca-Cola brand things. We nuke each other, and then we live in vaults, and then mole rats come. Oh, man. And then there's giant Hulk mutants that can't have sex. Oh, there's so much about Fallout. I don't even know now.
It's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, it's a pretty good summary.
Good start.
Shit. So America goes into this war, and we die in a day. And then the remnants of the government form a thing called the Enclave, and they decide that they want to kill everything else that's not the Enclave, including the survivors of the war. And there are also these mutants that are formed by the Enclave, and they're called super mutants, and they're kind of like the Hulk, but they don't have genitalia. And we end up fighting the Enclave, and we get clean water, and then we form a government called the New Californian Republic. And then that government becomes super corrupt. And then these racist dudes called Caesar's Legion show up, and they want to kill everyone, and they do, and they crucify people. And then this old dude that's like caught in a cryo chamber that really likes to gamble, wants to fix New Vegas, but you're an asshole, so you shoot him, and you become the king of New Vegas. Yeah. And then meanwhile, on the East Coast, there's this kid who gets abandoned by his dad, and so he runs around Washington, D.C. with daddy issues. trying to get his daddy to come home, but his daddy's actually trying to fix the DC wasteland. And so the guy's like, oh, whatever, I guess I'll help my dad. And then his dad dies because his dad was like, I'm going to be selfless and stuff. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go work with the Enclave now. And then the Enclave's like, actually, no, we're assholes and we're run by a robot. And so he's like, wow, okay, robot, you should kill yourself. And then the robot does for some reason. And then they solve the water issue. Then there's some dude that was frozen for a while up in, Boston. And he's like, okay, I'm going to get out and look for my son who was kidnapped. And then his son turns out to be like Hitler, but Science Hitler. And he decides that he doesn't want to work with Science Hitler or Literal Hitler, which is the Brotherhood of Steel dude that hates robots that are friendly. And so you join these people that have an erection for the Revolutionary War, and you fix the wasteland that way. Meanwhile, we hear nothing about DC. And then eventually you go to Massachusetts and you want to stop racists there, but they're too powerful, and you end up working with a cult, and that cult worships radiation. And then you kill everyone. And then you go to a theme park. It's a pretty good game. It's a good game.
Good game series.
Wow, that is an excellent summary of all
It was
time.
an amazing summary. Interesting thing I noticed there is that a lot of the Fallout games end with you making this huge choice, but what you actually listed off there was the canon of Fallout. So it was interesting, I think, is that even if you do make a choice, it doesn't carry over into the next game. You guys have played Mass Effect, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
How do you think the Fallout games would be different if they let you carry your choices over?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I was thinking about the gameplay. You can go wherever you want, kind of, and it's up to you. You are the player, you get to decide. It's not like a game of Zelda, where Zelda's like, hey, you have to go to this dungeon next, then you have to do this dungeon next, except for Breath of the Wild, but that's a whole different story. And then with games like Mass Effect, basically every single choice you make, or at least ultimate choice, matters in the end, and that impacts the end of it. Fallout kind of gives you this open world to explore, but in the end, it's always going to be the same, pretty much, based off what you I heard the summary of yours as well, which is pretty good. So, yeah.
Yeah, the only games that would even matter would be Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas, because those are all taking place in the same general area.
Interesting.
There should be references to Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, but that doesn't really matter as much because they're still really far apart. But Fallout 1, 2, New Vegas, your choices don't really matter in the previous games because it's set in stone how it turns out. But those games could be totally different. Especially with Fallout 2, you could have chosen to let the world die. And, obviously the world didn't die because, Fallout New Vegas takes place after that, hundreds of years afterwards. Yeah. And I mean, it's fine. There's giant salamander gecko things trying to kill you.
Those are fun to fight.
But, Cazadors, but,
Oh, yeah.
it's good. It's, yeah.
I want to change topics a little bit and go into the Mass Effect. I just want to, real quick, I think particularly Mass Effect 3 is most notorious for the ending. I don't know if it was extremely polarizing or just nobody liked it. I don't remember which one it was, but
it was both.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
It was blatantly stolen from Deus Ex.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of people forget that Mass Effect 3 was still a great game. Do you guys think that the ending really undercuts that as much as people think it does?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have Mass Effect 3 because it's on Steam, which sucks because it's an Origin exclusive.
Oh.
But I have heard, I know everything about, well, not everything, but I know what happens, with the Reapers and everything like that in the third game. So a lot of people were like, oh, it's such a bad way to end the trilogy. And it's a lot of people were like, no, it's a Mass Effect game. It's going to be good. And it's just I was like, oh, it's Mass Effect. You're an aliens, you fight stuff, you can date whoever you want. It's cool.
I think that Mass Effect 3 is a like I said, it's a really good game. I cried in a couple scenes, and Blubbering Baby. But at the same time, I don't think that it's necessarily the ending that put people off of it, but rather how the developers responded to the ending.
How did they respond?
People raised some concerns, and they were completely ignored, and then the developers were like, they released a paid DLC that was like a different ending because everyone wanted a different ending, and it was literally just letting everyone die rather than choosing. Yeah, an interesting thing that people don't normally know about Mass Effect 3 is that the ending was not created by the writing group.
Really?
Yeah, the writing team was completely left out except for 2 people part of it that locked themselves away and over the course of like a week made the ending by themselves without consulting the rest of the team, the development team. Yeah, and the people that were part of this team, the people that owned BioWare, ended up quitting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that.
That's intense.
Yeah.
You know, I heard, I believe I read it in some, I don't remember if it was an art book or what it was, but I think this is a really cool plan. But there was a plan when they were making the game that the Elusive Man would be a final boss, and he would have turned into this Reaper construct monster that you would have had to fight like a final boss. So it would have been more like the final bosses for Mass Effect 1 and 2. What do you guys think about that ending?
Oh, jeez.
Oh man, that's hard for me to swallow.
Yeah?
Personally, I think that the ending of Mass Effect 3 up until the choice was really great. I always felt like Mass Effect 3 had highs and lows throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right after the choice that you have to choose between the Geth, you know, that right there kind of ended with the appeal for me up until the very last moments where you're pushing through Earth to try to stop it. I always felt like that was better than most of the boss fights I felt in the Mass Effect 1 and 2, just because it felt a lot more personal for Shepard. And I feel in that sense that the lack of a big boss at the end felt a lot more human for the series, you know?
Yeah.
Especially because Shepard's, you know, getting pretty old in it. Like, they constantly force that he or she, canonically it's a she,
Really?
Yeah, are beaten down.
Well, that's cool.
And they're ready to pretty much die. In that sense, like I said, I don't think that they would even be capable of beating the Elusive Man if he turned into that with how they left it, where she was pretty much dead by the time they made it to the choice. They were done. Like I remember you were crawling in parts of it. You really only had your pistol.
Oh yeah, I remember
you were
that.
Done. Like
that was an intense
And
last
you get
bit.
this like unbeatable boss. I feel like that's.
I don't know.
Yeah.
At the time playing it, I felt like it was kind of a letdown. I mean, the final run was great, but then it just kind of tapered off in a way that I didn't really care for.
Oh, I totally get from a gameplay standpoint that, it was anticlimactic. Yeah. Definitely. That was like the biggest complaint. But when you take back and you like look at it from a story, it feels a lot more believable, you know? It kept me suspending my disbelief rather than jumping out and being like, wait, how the hell did I go from having my ass kicked crawling through to being able to fight this dude?
Right.
That makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. The thing you said about Shepard being a female canonically, I just want to ask something interesting. Do you guys usually play male or female characters, or do you find a balance?
If I had a choice, always female.
Yeah?
I always just enjoy playing women, because I feel like video games in general need more women as a main role. You've got all these women who are basically portrayed in either ways for the protagonists to indulge themselves, Witcher 3, or actually play as them. And I feel like if you have a choice, always Fire Emblem or Mass Effect, choose playing as a girl.
Chris?
It really depends. With Mass Effect, at first I played as male, so I could put myself in the role of Shepard as a male. But after I heard that they wanted Shepard to be canonically female, I played through the entire series in that role. Because I felt, story-wise, the lines are different. The characters are portrayed differently by the actors, and personally I feel like the female Shepard has a stronger performance.
Yeah.
It took me a while to replay it in that sense.
I see.
That being said, though, like I said, it depends on the game. With Fire Emblem, for instance, I typically use a lot of the female characters because if you're not using them as like your main character, they often get put into like a fetishization standpoint, especially in the new one with the petting simulator. But like it totally depends with the gender of the game.
I like to think I find a balance, but I usually tend to lean more towards female characters just because, for me personally, because I'm a man, in case you couldn't tell, I find it easier to sort of separate myself and escape into the game if the character is not like me. You understand?
Yeah.
And also, in general, I think some of this is because of our culture, but just, have you guys ever played the Saints Row series?
Yes.
Heard of it, never played.
Yeah? Okay. Well, essentially, it's Grand Theft Auto that does not take itself seriously. And this is actually the game, playing Saints Row 3 was actually the game that made me decide that, yeah, I think I prefer playing as female characters. Because in that game, Burt Reynolds is the mayor.
Amazing.
It's amazing, and I love it. And just hearing this gang boss, it just, as a female voice, it's funnier. It might just be because of the female actor as well, as the voice actor for female as well, but just like, fucking Burt Reynolds! It's priceless. I love it. Oh, it's wonderful.
Staying on Saints Row, I think my favorite character in 3 was the toilet. It's an unlockable character. You can run through the game suplexing people as a floating toilet.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh gosh, that was wonderful.
But yeah, I agree with Saints Row, especially with Saints Row the 4th.
Oh, that was not my favorite game.
Female character in it had a lot of really unique lines in it, and it was a bit more interesting too with how they continued it with Get Out of the Hell.
Oh yeah, I haven't played that one.
Oh, it's a good game. You should play it. You can kill people while sitting on a couch with a machine gun.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay, I kind of want to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
I've had some times where I really wanted to get some games on Steam, but they are not on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the Fable series. I love Fable, but only the first one is on Steam. It just pisses me off so much. Particularly Fable 2. I love that game. So what are some games that you guys think should be on Steam that aren't?
Yeah, a lot of the Origin games that we were just talking about. We're talking about Mass Effect 3 isn't on Steam. I'd love to put Mass Effect 3 on Steam.
Also, Mass Effect 1 and 2 are on
They
Steam,
are, I have both of those, yeah. But, like, come on, I gotta finish this trilogy. That's why I haven't played it yet. But I know you probably can get it somewhere else other than Steam on the computer. But also, along with Origin, we got Dragon Age. Dragon Age Origins is on there, and I have that.
That's a great game. I have that.
So I would love to see those games on there.
Pretty much any game belonging to a developer that does not want to use Steam. So Origin Access, Uplay, BlizzNet, all of that needs to go and work with Steam so people don't get divided into these different communities. Makes more money that way.
True.
And makes a better experience for people so they don't have to have like 5 different clients on their computer.
Very nice. Yeah. One more question. What are some games on Steam that you guys would recommend?
I've got one. To those people listening, play Long Live the Queen. You're going to be very confused getting it, but it's a really great game. You play as a princess, and essentially you're trying not to be assassinated. It's like a dating simulator, but you're playing as a princess trying not to get assassinated. And there's like 100 endings. Most of them you die in. And it's just absolutely great.
Well, that's wonderful.
I played that. I also agree with that. But also, a game I would recommend is playing Team Fortress 2 on Steam. Team Fortress 2 was my jam when I graduated high school, before Overwatch came out, of course. But Team Fortress 2 is free to play. Anyone can play it. There's so much fun on there. It's 9 different classes you can play as. It's a really fun game. I have like 300 plus hours on there.
One last game I'd recommend is called Dead by Daylight. The premise is you play as a serial killer or survivors, and essentially you're trying to get out or you're trying to slaughter them. And I mean, sacrificing a cute little girl to a spider queen, it's pretty great. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good game.
Awesome. And some games that I would recommend to you two, and also listeners, actually 3. First of all, I'm pretty sure you two have both played this Undertale.
Oh, yeah,
you played that? Yeah.
Of course.
It needs no explanation, really. Just play it and you will thank yourself.
Honestly, you can't really say anything about Undertale.
Yeah. I know, you really can't. It's an experience. It really is.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil anything. It's too important.
But Broforce.
Yes.
You both played Broforce?
I've heard of it, but I have not played it.
Okay. Yes. Get Broforce.
Nice. Is it free to play?
It's not, but it's really cheap.
Okay, that's fair with me.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. It's all of your favorite 80s movies, and the heroes are in the game, and they just have the word bro in their name. It's so wonderful.
That's great.
It's like
Yeah.
Braveheart is now Broheart. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's just mindless patriotism.
Honestly,
It's so much fun. I would
Awesome.
really recommend it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Super Amazing Wagon Adventure.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Same.
You never heard of that? Oh my gosh. Okay. You've played Oregon Trail, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Think of Oregon Trail, but just wacky as heck.
Is it a kids game or?
It's Oregon Trail, but a side-scrolling shooter.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my gosh.
It's so amazing.
That's
like
the zombie Oregon Trail.
the very first, when you're going through the game, one of the first things that happens is you come across a river, and you can make the decision to ford it or jump it. And keep in mind that you're in a covered wagon.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's so great. It's so wonderful.
Nice.
Okay, I think that's all we have
Great.
for today. Thank you both for coming
Yeah,
here.
of course, our pleasure.
Chris and Patrick,
Yeah.
thank you both very much. This has been Steamy Gamers. Thank you for listening.